Please welcome Professor Robert Winston. We thought we'd sustain the motif a bit with the glass. It's McGuigan's. It's made in Belfast.
What's it like?
I wouldn't touch that stuff with a barge pole. But I thought, you know, if things begin to flag, we might
they probably will.
dive into that, yeah. Now, that was obviously a very pleasurable day's filming.
No, it was terrible, actually. In fact, I ended up really in a taxi being driven away hastily from the shoot because the crew were getting a bit worried about me. And it was pouring with rain outside, and I thought, I can't go into the house like this. I'd had about 2.5 bottles of wine, and then I'd had a bottle of raki as well in that restaurant.
Well, you didn't have to do that. You just had that to get really drunk.
And so I walked around the house for about 2 hours, getting soaking before I thought I could just about get in the house without showing myself. But my family knew exactly what had happened.
They always do, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah. So do you think, well, you must do, or you wouldn't continue doing it. Do you think television has a critical role to play in popularising science, or at least making it more familiar to people?
Yeah, I think it's a vital role. I think it's extraordinary that you can communicate some really important ideas in a way that you can't do in any other way. We live in a society which is technologically driven, which needs to understand science so it can control it. So television has a very important role, I think, in helping people to understand what's driving society.
The thing is, though, that you tend to go to some lengths. I mean, you've dressed up as a pantomime dame and put your own sperm under a microscope. Lots of people wouldn't go that far.
Well, I have to admit, Terry, I did cheat a bit with the sperm. The shoot... the shoot was in Rome, and
the sperm was in London.
And it was somebody else's. I've never said that before, but it was.
That's really cheating. And we saw a number of experiments in Superhuman, a series you made about the body repairing itself, although it seemed a little more tortuous, that. Can we just have a look at this, Superhuman?
I'm getting down to my underwear in this building made entirely of ice. The temperature in here is below freezing, and believe me, it's jolly cold. So how long will it take for my body temperature to drop? It's now half an hour later, and although I feel very cold, my body temperature's only dropped by 1 degree. So you can see that our bodies are normally very good at keeping us warm. Can I get my clothes on now?
That's disappointing. It's disappointing that you allowed modesty to take over there. I was expecting the full Monty.
Yeah. There wouldn't have been much to show in that temperature.
Is there a frustrated actor that we're watching on the screen?
Well, that's what you see on television, isn't it? I mean, the point about the part of the television, I think, is that it's a way of using what is a very serious art form, a wonderful art form, television, actually, in a way which is, constructive. And that's why I think programs like that one are quite useful and interesting. And they're very interesting to do because they require you to think laterally about the subject and work out what will be interesting to an audience.
Well, it's certainly interesting to this. Either that or they've gone to sleep. I want to show you a moment from the show when we first met back in 1990. We actually held a debate in the studio. Will you remember that?
I do very well.
Over the issues surrounding IVF, which was entirely new at the time, because your critics were attempting to restrict the research you were so in favour of.
Terry, 2 weeks ago, we attempted a treatment which failed. A woman in her 20s who has had 8 pregnancies and she has one live child, and that child is strapped into a wheelchair, has constant attention, is incontinent, mutilates himself, and will die within the next 2 years, and this woman is watching that child slowly die. She's had 8 pregnancies to achieve that one child. Now, what we're desperately trying to do is to prevent her from needing a termination of pregnancy, which, regrettably, perhaps for some people, is legal in this country. What we will be able to do with this research, assuredly, there's no doubt about this, in time, perhaps this year, is to make certain that this woman is able to start a pregnancy for the first time, knowing that that fetus, if it develops, will be free of the genetic handicap and will become a normal, healthy little boy. Now, if this bill goes through Parliament, that treatment will have to stop. That can't be just. That is fundamentally wrong. It must be her right to decide what she should do with her own fertilized eggs.
No, but in fact, that's...
I want to tell you something, Terry, that I've never told you before. It shows the power of television, because as a consequence of that show and your listening and your ability to weave an argument sensibly through a very emotional subject, that bill went through Parliament in the right way. It meant that hundreds of people in this country got treated. It meant that you had a direct effect on the families of a large number of people, not just in this country, but throughout the world, because this was a pioneering treatment which was started in Britain. And it wasn't just that, it was the whole of IVF. There are now 1 million babies that have been born, and you had a big part to play in that.
No, that's kind of you to say so, but thank you. Thank you. Now, interesting, your latest series, Child of Our Time.
Yes.
Just trying to point out how unique all our children are and how they develop differently.
I don't know anybody, maybe 2 people in the audience have watched it, but, you know, these children are delightful because they're like an extended family.
Yeah.
There are 25 of them, and they are really surprising. They're wonderful kids. They're all different backgrounds. They come from totally different sort of walks of life, and they all show how they've overcome adversity in different ways, and we can look at the difference between their environment and their genetics. And
I think we can have a look at one of the recent experiments you conducted with these millennium children.
What's interesting, though, that the serious psychological research that's been done shows that actually both the children that cheat and lie tend to be the most successful in later life. It's really rather an interesting observation.
Yes, I think if you've met some captains of industry, you can see
Yes.
the truth of that. It's been a great pleasure to see you again. Thank you for joining us on this programme. Professor Robert Winston.